Benvenuto! Welcome to Cherry Hill Home Cooking. My name is Mark. Today we're going to do some pork chops. We're going to pan-sear them, get a nice crust on them, and then we're going to get them finished up in the oven. We're also going to make some sautéed asparagus, and Wade will separate them into two segments. So in case you want to just go and see the asparagus one, you can do that, or the pork chop one, or make them together. Pork chops was always one of my favorite things as a kid. My mom made the most delicious pork chops in the whole world. And this is kind of my version of them that I have developed over the years. I keep it pretty simple, okay? I use a mixed Italian seasoning. So use whatever your favorite Italian seasoning blend is. I use a little bit of accent, okay, or MSG, just a small amount. But if anybody has a problem with using that, admit it. And of course, the other important thing is going to be salt and pepper. And of course, the most important thing is the pork chops. All right, so I've got 4 nice bone-in pork chops. They're about an inch, maybe a little bit more each. I like using the bone-in. I think it adds a little bit more flavor to it. You certainly could use center cut, non-bone. These are big pork chops. So this recipe is going to be to serve 4 or 2 really big eaters. Of course, if you want to just do 2 chops, just kind of reduce everything by half. If you want to do more, increase the amount of the recipe for the number of chops that you're doing. Okay, so believe it or not, that is basically all we've got for our pork chops. Oh, of course, we need some olive oil to fry them. We're just going to need a couple teaspoons. You're going to need a big frying pan, depending upon how many chops you're going to do. And I'm going to do a little pan sauce. And my mother used to use Heinz 57 to do that. Heinz 57 sauce loves pork chops and chicken. And we're going to use a little bit of butter to kind of finish it right at the end. Now, what are we going to do with our asparagus? Okay, we're going to, before I clean this up, we're just going to kind of go through this quickly. All right, so now I have 2 bunches of asparagus here. If you basically can use the same things. All of our asparagus is going to have is salt and pepper, some olive oil, a little bit of butter. We're going to saute those up nice. I'm doing 2 because asparagus is one of our favorite vegetables, especially Wade. He loves it. And we'll have more than we need for dinner tonight, but tomorrow he'll probably mix them up with some scrambled eggs or something. He really loves asparagus. Of course, now I've rinsed them. I washed them off, towel dried them a little bit. So there's your asparagus spare, right? So these ones I've already trimmed. Just in case you've never done asparagus, it's, the age-old question, where do you trim it to? Well, it's really, if this is nice spring asparagus, so this is really, really fresh. But I would say if you go down the spear, you're going to see this a little bit softer. I would say about here, it's going to get to the real fibrous part, and it's going to be a little bit too fibrous to cook. So you can cut it off just about there. And so these are, I'd say it's all about the same. All right, so there's really not that much you could do with your little ends, just throw them off the side. Okay, we're going to put this aside. We're going to kind of clean this up a little bit, and we'll be back and we'll get everything cooking. Okay guys, so one thing I wanted to show you is, so I've got my salt, pepper, my little bit of accent, and my Italian seasoning in a little ramekin here. Okay, so I put those all in a little bowl and I give that a nice stir to get it mixed up. And you're gonna see why in a minute. Because we're gonna liberally sprinkle our mixture here over our pork chops. It smells yummy. And then we're going to give it a little rub in there. Let's make sure we get all the surfaces covered, even the sides if you can. There's not a lot of fat on the ends, so I didn't bother trimming it. If there is a lot of fat, you might want to trim that off. I didn't feel it was necessary with these. Okay, so the reason I did that and why I put it in that bowl is because this way I can turn them. Not sure if I've mentioned when we were going to the ingredients, but I've patted these dry. So I'm going to turn them over. And we're going to do the other side. So that way, the reason I'm doing it that way is so I'm not cross-contaminating everything. I only have to wash my hands once. And this is gonna, don't worry, it's not gonna, it looks like a lot, but a lot of this is, of course, going to come off during our cooking process in the frying pan. All right, and then give it a little bit of rub in. So other than maybe cleaning up this little bit of the counter and washing my hands, I haven't cross-contaminated anything. All right, so we're gonna put this aside. I'm gonna start to heat up my frying pan on medium heat, get that nice and warm, and that'll probably take 3, 4, 5 minutes. And in the meantime, we'll let our spices kind of start to meld in to our meat. Let me just put the pan on. All right, I'm gonna wash my hand and we'll come back and get them in the pan. Okay, our pan is nice and hot. It's been on medium for probably about 4 or 5 minutes. In the meantime, our pork chops are getting some nice flavor imparted in them. We've got our olive oil. All right, now we're not deep frying these, but we do want a nice little coating of olive oil. So that's probably gonna be about 2 tablespoons, maybe a little bit more. All right, so then we're gonna take our nice pork chops. My stove is a little, not quite even, so. And we're gonna lie that down in there. We've got a nice sizzle going on. I'm gonna try to do all 4 of these. I may not be able to. Pork chops is a little bit different than like when you do chicken or something like that. There's not a lot of moisture here and I've patted them all down, so I'm not really afraid they're gonna steam in there. And I don't think we're gonna get the 4th one in there, so we'll do 3. All right, so like we've done many times, guys, it's just a waiting game. I can already smell them. They smell delicious, but we want to get a nice crust on each side, and that's going to take 4 or 5 minutes. So we'll be back in 4 or 5 minutes. Okay, guys, we should have a nice coating on each one, and we do. That's what you want, that nice brown crust. I did get the 3rd one in there. So we're going to turn them over. So got a nice crust on those three. I'm going to give this one a few seconds longer. We're going to repeat that same process. It's going to take 4 or 5 minutes, maybe a little bit less, because now by this point your pan has gotten really nice and hot. As a matter of fact, let me see. Yeah, see that one? I put this in after those, and that browned quicker because the pan had really reached that nice high temperature. All right, we'll be back in about 3 or 4 minutes and take a look and see how they look. You know what I mean, right? Okay, guys, it's been, again, about another 3 or 4 minutes. We got a nice brown crust on the other side. I don't know if you can see that. Nice crusty caramelization on there. All right, so we've got our oven is preheated 375. Of course, when you make this, you want to make sure that you've got an oven-safe pan. All right, so, and then we're just gonna transfer that into the oven. All right, for about, that, say 1 inch, 1.5 inch pork chop, it's probably gonna take 10-15 minutes. Depending upon how long it took you to sear, how far the cooking got up into the meat. But I'm going to say this is going to take about 10 minutes. So I'm going to just clean up a little bit and we'll go on to the asparagus. See you in a minute. Okay guys, so on to our asparagus, because our asparagus is going to take just about the amount of time. We've got about 7 minutes left. Might take a few more minutes, but our pork chops are going to rest a little bit while we make the pan sauce anyway. But anyway, so this could not be easier, and this is one of those things that it's so easy and it's so delicious. All right, so my burner was already hot, so my pan is nice and warm, nice and hot. Again, you need probably about a tablespoon, 2 tablespoons of olive oil, and I'm going to take a tablespoon of butter, which is melting already. All right, now I don't want that butter to burn, but let's get it melted. And of course the olive oil's got a little bit higher smoke point than the butter, so it shouldn't burn. All right, so we got our prepared asparagus, and we're just gonna put it into the saute pan. My heat's on medium right now, and it doesn't matter, they don't have to all touch really tightly on the surface, because we're gonna move this around a bit here and there. I'm gonna put a little bit of salt in, because of course with veggies, salt will help bring out the moisture in the asparagus and start to get it cooked. So those are really small pinches. I'm going to wait to add some pepper, let this cook a little bit. One other thing while the salt is on my mind. Now, in the recipe for the pork chops, I use a teaspoon of kosher salt. Now, if you're using fine grain salt or table salt, you want to cut that down to maybe half a teaspoon and then adjust it according to your taste. Same thing with this. This looks like I'm doing a lot of salt, but those crystals are big. That's really not all that much salt. Now, excuse me, we got a new microphone and I may have just screamed at you. Oh, sorry. So the asparagus is really going to depend upon how al dente or how tender you want it. This pan is, mind you, is a little bit crowded, so it might take me a little bit longer than if you just did one batch. But it really depends upon how you like it. Of course, al dente means to the tooth, so when you bite it, you get that tooth feel to it. If you like it a little bit more tender, let it go on a little longer. But that's going to take anywhere between, I'd say, 3 to 5 minutes for it to get al dente. We like it a little bit more than al dente, not mushy, but a little bit softer. So we're going to let that do its thing. We'll come back in 4 or 5 minutes and you can take a look at it. Okay guys, so this has been sauteing for about 5-6 minutes, 7 minutes about. And I've just kind of every once in a while come over and given it a stir and mixed things up a bit. All right. I'm going to add a little bit, pinch of more salt. I would say I'm probably in total using about 1/4 teaspoon of salt in this. And then we're going to give it a nice dusting of pepper. Now at this point, this is done. This is just probably about tender, a little bit more than al dente. This would be delicious, just like it is. Just gonna mix up our pepper in there a little bit. All right, so like I said, we like it a little bit softer. So I'm gonna shut off the heat. I'm gonna remove our asparagus from the heat, put it over here, and I'm gonna put a cover on it. And in about 5 minutes, just that residual heat and the steam is gonna make it perfect. All right, now our pork chops are done in the oven. I know I've said this many times. Don't forget, even though this has a handle, it's gonna be hot. And I've said this before, I learned the hard way. One time I reached in for a frying pan that I had in there, wasn't thinking, of course, just thought, oh, it's a frying pan. Went to grab it, and that handle was hot. So always make sure you have your oven mitt handy. All right, so I'm gonna take our pork chops out. All right, and we're gonna put them on a platter. A chef friend of mine told me one of the things they do when they're in a professional kitchen is when they take something out like that, they put a rag over the handle to make sure anybody realizes that's hot. So we're gonna take these out, we're gonna put them on a platter. They're done. Now, if you want, you could check on a meat thermometer. Check the doneness for pork should be on there. But I know they're done. I've done this many times. All right, I am gonna cover them with some tin foil. I'll be right back. We'll put these right over here because we want to just keep them warm. And we're gonna let them rest for about 10 minutes or so. Just loosely cover them while they rest. We'll keep them warm. All right, and we're gonna go on to our pan sauce. Okay, so again, don't forget, hot pan here. All right, so we're gonna put this right there, and we're going to put the heat on, medium high. I'm gonna put my mitt on my left hand because I'm gonna use my right hand. We got quite a bit of moisture from here. I don't think we might not need any more water to scrape up our bits, but depending on how much oil you used, if you needed some additional water to get up all your little crusty bits, put a splash in, literally just a splash. All right, we don't really need it, but now because our pan was hot, this is already starting to boil. And I'm going to reduce it just slightly. This is just a pan sauce, so this isn't really like a gravy. But I am going to reduce it a bit. So of course, when you reduce, you bring it to a boil. Reducing it is the water is evaporating. And we're going to use just a little pat of butter, which is going to kind of get everything to emulsify. We're not going to take our oven mitt off because that pan is still very hot. Turn that up even higher. And we don't have to season this. A big reason is we already have our seasoning that have dripped into the pan, and our Heinz 57 is going to have its own flavoring. I don't know if you can tell, that's evaporated a bit. It's kind of hard. You will get the feeling of it if you do it. It starts to get a little thicker. It actually feels a little thicker under my little spatula here. So at this point I'm going to shut that off because we don't need the heat anymore. And we're going to take our pat of butter, throw it in there, get it moving around, nicely melted. And again, I don't know if you can tell, but see, that has thickened. See, when we scrape it, it doesn't come right together. It's just about what you want. The butter has given us a little bit of thickness. You can actually remove that from the heat totally. Then we're going to take our Heinz 57 sauce and about 2 tablespoons. This is a new bottle, so I'm going to give it a shake. So about 2 tablespoons of... Now, you don't have to do a pan sauce. I don't always do one. But I figured we had it. We were showing you all how to do it, so we might as well make it and get that nicely mixed together. Of course, you could have also deglazed this with a little bit of white wine if you wanted to. And there we have it, a nice little pan sauce. So before I take that heavy pan over here, I'm going to remove our tin foil. See, I just touched that with my forearm there, and it's hot. Where's my big spoon without the holes? I don't know. It's probably in the dishwasher. So we'll take this one. So again, we got our mid on still. And you're just going to drizzle all of that deliciousness over your chops.
Smells good.
And doesn't it? Oh, that pan is heavy. Don't want to miss any. All right, guys. And there we have seared pork chops with a pan sauce. All right, we're going to get everything ready for dinner. See you in a bit. Okay, it's finally time to eat. The nice thing about this is this meal kind of all goes together really about the same time. Of course, if we weren't having to move things around and set up the camera and stuff, we would have sat right down and ate it, but it's been a couple minutes since then. But of course, I got a little bit of TMI, sorry guys. Got a little bit more Heinz 57 sauce, and I always leave it on the table in case anybody wants some more. Of course, we got one of Wade's favorite things in the world, cranberry sauce, which goes with everything as far as he's concerned. And of course, if any of you are over a certain age, you'll know pork chops and applesauce. So an applesauce, which put that in the comment. It'd be interesting. I'm sure there's most of our followers knows what that's from, but it'd be interesting. Of course, applesauce goes terrific with pork chops. All right, let's dig in. What do you want to try first? Your pork chop or your asparagus? All right. And look at that. See, it's got a little bit of droop to it, but it's not overcooked. Yeah. Still a little bit of a bite to it.
It's tender, yeah. It's very good.
Good? We love asparagus. There's something that asparagus does to some people. Make something smell a little different. Let me know the interesting comment. Does asparagus have any effect on you? Okay. Going for your pork chop?
Yep, I am.
Now, pork is never going to be like steak where it's, you know, butter soft. The idea is you want it to be tender and juicy. Which that is. You chew it, and you got the juices in your...
Oh, and the sauce is delicious too.
Yum, yum, yum. Well,
very nice.
Little cranberry sauce. Something is going by our house.
It sounds like a train.
It does. We don't have a train near us, but... And maybe a little bit of applesauce too. Well, let's see how it tastes with applesauce. A little dip. Delicious. Yeah.
Even with the sauce.
Right?
Even with the sauce?
Yep. All right, well, I'm going to enjoy eating my pork chops and asparagus, so that's all I got to say at the moment.
Well, because I can't eat yet. Please like and subscribe and check out cherryhillhomecooking.com.
Ciao.
See you on the next video. Bye.